another Carrie Stevens fly today from the Hilliard book. This is the Jenny Lind. Interesting fly. There is a wet fly called the Jenny Lind. I don't know, I doubt they're related. Now that wet fly I know was tied in honor of a famous actress, I think back in the 1920s, maybe, or the last century. But I don't think this one is related to it because they're very different color makeup and everything else. So this may be associated with another Jenny Lind. But this one's kind of interesting in that the wing on this one calls for a duck breast feather dyed red, which I haven't been able to get. But there is a substitute that I'll talk about in the video. And it also has the head on this is a red head with a black band. Usually a lot of her flies will have a black head with a colored band, whether it's red or orange. And this one's a little bit different. So that's the Jenny Lind. I'll get started time. I'm going to start the Jenny Lind with my hook on the vise. This is a Partridge CS5 9X. It's a little bit shorter than the CS15s, but it is a 9X long streamer hook. So you could even use something that's, say, a 7X, or if you want. The Mike Martinick hooks are generally a little bit shorter, so that's fine. Just keep in mind that your hackles that you create for the wing need to be long enough for that particular hook. So if you're using a real long hook, you're going to need to make certain that you have hackles that are long enough, versus if you don't, then you might need to use a shorter hook. So I'm going to debarb the hook and I'm going to attach my thread. The Jenny Lind has a orange floss body, so I'm going to start with a white thread. There's no tail on this. There's just the tag and then the body and the rib. So I'm going to lay down a base layer of thread here, then tie in my tag. So with about a quarter of the shank left, I'm going to tie in my tag. Tag is just silver tinsel. I'm using a Danville size 10 silver and gold Mylar tinsel. Because there's no tail on this, I can tie in the tag back here and then come forward, tie in the floss for the body, apply the floss, and then put the tag and the rib in at the same time. In other words, I don't have to have two steps there for the tag. I don't tie this in, apply it, flip it away, then tie in the body and apply it. Or tie in another piece for the rib. As I mentioned, the body is just some orange floss. I'm using a Danville's 4-strand Rayon in orange. I'm going to use all 4 strands for this. Bring this forward in touching turns, collecting that floss down to the hook shank. I like to flatten out my thread every now and again. I just think that it gives it a little bit smoother underbody, as well as it collects that floss and all down to the hook shank a little bit easier. As I mentioned before, with no tail on here, I can just tie the tinsel in back here. Now I can apply the tag, and then once I get to the body, move that forward so that it puts in the rib. I don't have to tie the tag, apply the tag, cut it away, tie in a second piece for the rib, and then the body and so forth. Trim away the excess. Now I can put my red thread on. The Jenny Lind has a red head with a black band. As I mentioned, a lot of Carrie Stevens' streamers that she did like this have similar characteristics and similar materials. The heads being usually a black head with some sort of color band, whereas the Jenny Lind is one that has an actual colored head with a black band in the middle of it. Also, the Jenny Lind uses some bucktail for an underbelly, which is very common in a lot of her flies. It's usually a white bucktail, but for this one she uses a yellow bucktail. I'm going to tie that in so it just extends maybe a quarter of a shank past the bend of the hook. We'll tie in the throat. The throat is some yellow hackle. I'm going to use some yellow Schlappen for this. I've got 3 different sections of yellow Schlappen for the throat. I'm going to tie these in so they go about halfway down the hook shank. Tie one on the bottom and then 2 of them over on just a little on the side here. For our wing. The wing on the Jenny Lind has some golden pheasant crest in it first. And then it is 4 silver blue Dr. Hackles, a shoulder of red duck breast feather, and then a cheek of jungle cock. So I've got some golden pheasant here. I find the easiest way to put this in, because it can be difficult to get this curve just right setting. You want the hackle, I should say the feather here, to come down in that curve to just kind of go right at the bend of the hook. So it just kind of curves back a little bit. It's going to be about as long as the bucktail underneath. Well, setting this up here and then wrapping that in, sometimes it twists on you and turns and everything. I find it's better to, down near the butt end, to tie this in, but I'm only putting about 3 wraps on this just to keep that snug but not really tied down hard, because then I'm going to pull it to my right as I manipulate that a little bit and get that curve right in where I want it. This tends to, for me at least, keep it from rolling and twisting. See, and then I get a much better outcome. Bracing that, I'll put in about another half a dozen wraps or so to secure the end of that, and then trim away the excess. So that works for me. The golden pheasant crest, like I said, can be some kind of finicky to get that in just right. Clean this up just a little bit for our wing. The rest of the wing, as I mentioned, the recipe actually does call for silver Dr. Blue. A lot of times it'll just say a blue hackle or green hackle or something like that. In this case, she specifically, or I should say the recipe in the Hilliard book specifically states silver Dr. Blue hackles. These are some strung rooster hackles. The red feather is kind of interesting. The recipe calls for a duck breast feather dyed red. There's a number of Carrie Stevens patterns that call for this. I haven't been able to locate any duck breast feathers dyed red. I've toyed with dyeing some of my own, but I did happen across this is a Whiting American Hen Saddle that is a dyed red. It's a white hackle that's, saddle that's dyed red, and they're just the right shape. So sometimes you have to improvise a little bit. You have to use something a little bit different. It may be, of course, domestic ducks are white and they're more common. Now, it may have been back then that it was much more common to find duck breast feathers dyed in various colors. I don't know. I could do a little research and find out, but this works for me for this particular fly. And as I said, there's a number of different patterns that she has where she uses that, so I'll be doing some more of those as well. So I'm going to trim the excess rachis off of this. I've already prepared these. If you haven't seen how I go about preparing these, there's a number of videos on there about how I build these wings out ahead of time. So I'll get this one in place. Now these are, it's a little bit longer. I don't think, probably could have gone up to size 2 hook on this one with these. And I don't know that there's any hard and fast rule in terms of the length of the wing past the bend of the hook. So I'll tie that in and make certain it's all vertical. These do tend to, the strung rooster saddle hackles like these tend to be a little bit softer in the tips, so they can tend to droop down a little bit this way or that. I think if this were swimming in the water, it would be just fine. And I think even this were framed and presented, it would look just fine. If you would rather have something a little bit straighter, maybe even a little fuller, look for a Whiting rooster saddle in a silver Dr. Blue. So I'm going to shape the head here, filling any of that in, making certain I've got all of the materials underneath covered. Then I'm going to put in my whip finish to secure the red. And then I'll use the black to put the black band in. For black, I'm using the red, by the way, was a Danville 70 Denier. In red, the black is going to be a Danville 70 Denier in black. Obviously, black bands, black thread. Take that out of there. So I'm going to attach this right in the middle, and as I said, a lot of her patterns have a black head with a distinctive color band in the middle, but then a few of them, this one being one of them, the Chief is another one, they actually have a red head in this case with a black band right in the middle. So you just want to make certain that you're getting that just about, the same width as the front and back of the red. And be careful not to get too many wraps in there and build that up. Probably the hardest part of this is getting your whip finish to be right on top of that black band. Careful when putting that in, snugging that down. Trim that away. I'll get some head cement on here. And then I'm going to come back with 2 coats of a clear lacquer on here. Head cement's clogged up. So like I said, I'll come back and get 2 coats of a clear lacquer on that, mostly to protect the threads. I'm not looking for an elaborate glossed head on that. And that will complete the Jenny Lind. So that's an interesting fly. It's a little bit different. It's kind of put together like a lot of her featherwing streamers, but a little bit different material in it and just something kind of unique. So that's the Jenny Lind. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. But what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.